Today I'll be reviewing the biggest SUV within Ford's lineup, a 2022 Ford Expedition. If you're in the market for a full-size SUV, one that can carry 8 passengers around with plenty of room to spare, and one that can pretty much tow anything, well, this is the one to look at from Ford. For 2022, the Expedition does go through pretty much a complete refresh. The outside, inside has been changed substantially. Also, the powertrain has also been changed. It's more powerful, and this one in particular, this one that I'm driving, the Stealth Performance, comes with 440 horsepower and over 500 pound-feet of torque. So basically, it's a Ford Raptor engine under the hood. So how good is this full-size SUV from Ford? Let's find out. All right, I'm behind the wheel. Let me tell you a little bit more about this brand new Expedition and tell you about how it feels and drives on the road. First of all, with this 2022 model, Ford does refresh the Expedition. So the outside does look slightly different than the old previous model. And also the inside changes significantly. I think the biggest change has to be the inside and of course the brand new powertrain. I'll get to those things in a little bit. As for the outside, it still has the overall same shape. The chassis and the frame really unchanged. So it's really cosmetic stuff on the outside, but I think it does modernize, of course, the Expedition. So if you're looking at the front end, it does look a little bit different. Obviously, the grille design has been reshaped, and same thing with the headlights. They look more like the F-150 headlights. You have this nice LED daytime running lights. It makes like a C shape, right? And also you got some fog lights underneath. The overall bumper design, grille design, front end, just modernized, right? It does look a little bit different, although you're looking for them far away, it still kind of looks the same. Side view looks almost identical. Back also looks the same too, except with this Stealth Performance, a lot of the trim on the outside that you see are now painted with black, so it does add a little bit of difference, right? It does look a little bit more sporty. But on the back end, the taillights has been redesigned, the bumper design. There's a whole lot of changes, but they aren't very noticeable. The good thing, though, is if you look at the Expedition, it is not an ugly-looking SUV. This is a big, full-size SUV, and full-size SUVs need to look brawny and masculine and aggressive, and the new Expedition hits on all those marks. Now, because this is a full-size SUV, as you would expect, you get a massive amount of room on the inside. You could configure the Expedition to be a 7-passenger or 8-passenger. It really doesn't matter because you're gonna get an enormous amount of room either way. This one, as configured, is 7 passengers because it does come with captain chairs. Of course, you don't have to select captain chairs. And in the third row, it's wide enough for 3 passengers. So really, you get enormous amount of room on the inside. That's to be expected. Stepping in and out of this Expedition could be challenging for people on the shorter side, but if you pick the upper trims like this Limited, right, you do get powered side steps, so that's fantastic. Make getting in and out very easy for those of you guys on the shorter side, and of course for kids, and it just kind of tucks in away when you close the doors. Really, really nice. Now, once you come inside and you sit down, wow. With a full-size SUV like this, you're sitting very high up, very commanding view. I love it, me personally. You're looking down on everyone, and not only that, this Expedition is just really comfortable. These seats, even though they look pretty good, especially with the red stitching, now that comes with the Stealth Performance package. There's a lot of red stitching on the inside, so it definitely adds sportiness, but the seats overall, very, very comfortable. Very comfortable. They're not aggressive at all, so you kind of just like plop into them and they just feel good. There's no other way to put it. And overall, this Expedition has nice soft suspension, so when you're just driving around, you just feel so comfortable. And that's one of the best things about a full-size SUV. You just feel so comfortable driving within one, and it's no different with this Expedition. So the drive is lovely, and the commanding view is lovely, and overall visibility is quite good. The windows are all pretty big. Blind spot is good. I love the side mirrors. The side mirrors are huge. You know, manufacturers these days go with very tiny, small side mirrors for fuel efficiency, but not with the Expedition. You still get full-size mirrors, and that's fantastic. Now, I mentioned about the Stealth Performance Package a couple times. Let me tell you more about it. Now, the Stealth Performance Package is an add-on for the limited trim, and it's very unique because you can't get it with all the trims, and it adds on a whole lot. So I talked about the red stitching on the inside. Yes, it's very nice, but there's other stuff on the outside and things that you can't see. For example, on the outside, I did mention a lot of trim is now black. The grille is black. There's a lot of things that's black, so it does add that sportiness to the Expedition. But also the wheels are different. Special 22-inch wheels. 22 sounds big, but they don't look very big on a big SUV like this, but it's better than the standard 20s that you get. So you get 22-inch wheels, also black. Also, the brake calipers are painted red, so it does pop out, although because you're not getting any special like Brembo brakes or big caliper brakes underneath, the painted red calipers to me look a little cheap. It almost seems like someone just painted it themselves, right? So that's the one criticism I would give about those painted calipers, but you do get them, and they add a little bit of pop. Also, the suspension is tuned differently, a little bit more sporty, although I've already mentioned about the smooth ride. I haven't tested a non-stealth performance 2022 Expedition, but I will say this, it's very comfortable. It's very comfortable, so I can't tell how it is versus a regular suspension. Right, so there's major things that you're getting with the Stealth Performance Package, and the biggest one I haven't mentioned is with the engine. Now, all Expeditions starting from 2022, you can't get a V8 anymore. They're all 3.5 liter V6 twin turbo, pulled straight from the F-150. Now, that's not a bad thing because power output goes up significantly and fuel economy improves a little bit. So normal Expedition gets around 380 horsepower and made it to a 10-speed automatic. Now on the upper trims, for example, the Platinum trim, you're getting 400 horsepower, which is good amount of horsepower and plenty of torque. Now with the Stealth Performance, that gets bumped up even more, 440 horsepower and over 500 pound-feet of torque. So basically, this is a F-150 Raptor engine stuffed under the hood. Now, it's not the new Raptor R engine, but it's basically the same Raptor engine that you'll find under a F-150's hood inside this Expedition. So that's the biggest thing that you get with the Stealth Performance, hence the performance part. And in a little bit, I'll test out 0 to 60, but I know driving around right now, it is really good. I like the powertrain. I love the transmission. And I'm glad to see that Ford has spent time tuning and retweaking the shifting with this automatic. I have tested plenty of Ford 10-speed automatics before. I would say probably the first generation. And even though they were okay, they always made the car feel slow and bogged down while you're cruising. Like right now, I'm cruising around 40 miles per hour, right? Before, it would just upshift to like 10 speed right away. And then the car just feels slow. You have to like punch it to make it downshift. That's no longer the case anymore. Ford really, I could tell they really spent some time to retune their 10 speed. So now even when I'm cruising around 30, 40 miles per hour, the Expedition does not feel slow, doesn't feel bogged down. And the shifts are so crisp and seamless, I can't even tell when this Expedition is shifting. So I do think the powertrain is fantastic. Definitely a big upgrade from the previous generation. And you know what? Fuel economy goes up slightly, although nothing to brag about. With this one that I'm driving right now, combined MPG is around 18, which, yeah, it doesn't sound so good, but for a big SUV like this, it's not bad, not bad. Now, something else that you get with a big SUV with a big engine like this is towing capacity. So this Expedition could tow nearly 10,000 pounds, a little bit under 9,300 pounds. So if you wanted to tow a trailer, a boat, whatever you want, basically, you'll have no problems with it. Now, something else that's impressive is the cabin noise. There's absolutely zero wind noise from the outside. That's fantastic. There's a little bit more from the suspension. I do hear the suspension and road noise a little bit more, but it's not bad, and overall, this is a very quiet ride. So Ford definitely upped the insulation inside this Expedition too. Ooh. Not bad, not bad. All right, so I just punched it from 0, went up to 60 miles per hour. Slight lag at the beginning, seemed like there was a little bit of turbo lag at the beginning, but once the turbo spooled up, yeah, this Expedition just kind of started flying. So 0 to 60 is not going to be impressive. It's not going to be in the sports car category, but as for acceleration, passing, I mentioned towing, no problem with this brand new engine. Now, the one thing that you may miss out on is that beautiful V8 noise. Although the previous Expedition I tested, there was some V8 rumble inside the cabin, but it was very muted. And inside this one, yeah, it's very, very muted. Very muted indeed. Now, if you go into sport mode, and yes, there are a lot of driving modes, I do think sport mode does up the exhaust noise. I think it pumps in fake exhaust noise inside this cabin. So I'm in sport mode right now. Yeah. I do think sport mode, you know, uses the speakers and generates some exhaust noise, and it's noticeable. It is very noticeable. So, so those of you guys that are missing that V8 rumble, don't worry, Ford got you covered. Just put in sport mode and you'll get it. Now, as for the interior, well, this 2022 does get a big significant refresh on the inside. The dash and center console changed completely. This resembles very much like the new F-150 in a good way. And also, inside this Limited, there's a lot of leather on the dash, door panels, you know, center console. If you just feel around, it just feels good. And you could tell the fit and finish is pretty darn good too, especially compared to last generation. This is no longer like a truck interior. It just feels more like a upscale truck interior. So the inside definitely gets improved, although not nearly as luxurious as some of the luxury full-size SUVs out there, but it's a big improvement. Now, inside this Limited, you get 2 giant screens. The gauge cluster is a giant 12-inch digital screen, and of course, tachometer, speedometer, your range, your fuel, I mean, all that stuff. Temperature is all digital, right? And inside the main menu, there are 100 different things to look at. Everything that relates to your Expedition. So that's fantastic. The other screen is, of course, is vertically mounted 15.5-inch screen, right? Running the latest sync software. Now, I have tested the horizontal mounted screen, and to be honest, I think the horizontal screen makes more sense, although the vertical screen isn't too bad, right? It's unique. It has a volume knob that's like on the screen, so that's unique. And the bottom is pretty easy to figure out, like your temperature control, your heated seats, ventilated seats, stuff like that. On top, though, there's 2 different buttons. You have one button, it looks like the Expedition, and inside you could see all the vehicle settings, right? This one comes with 360 camera view, so you get to see some nice views around your Expedition, but also there's a lot of settings, vehicle settings like display, locks, connectivity, hotspot, Wi-Fi, you know, stuff like that that you can configure. And then also there's like another menu button on top where it's like kind of like a quick access menu. So you can see like navigation, your media, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, of course, standard. And there's also something like Sketch. I think, just for fun, you can sketch whatever you want. But I will say that once you like go into a mode like Sketch, it's really hard to figure out how to exit out of it. There's no X button that I could figure out. I spent like 5 minutes looking for it, and then I realized you just have to like click into something else. That's really how you get out of it. So that's a little confusing, but everything else is pretty easy to figure out. The screen itself is fantastic. It's big, bright. Refresh is great, so can't complain about the screen. It's nice. Inside this Limited, you also get other nice features. You get adjustable power pedals, which is really nice. You get 3 memory seats. Also, you get home link buttons. You also get this Pro trailer control, which helps you when you're backing up with a trailer. There's also a ton of other things for your trailer and for towing, obviously, because a lot of people buy a full-size SUV just to tow their boat or trailer, right? So Ford did build in a lot of features just for that. Now, for the driving modes, there's a ton of driving modes. Besides sport that I talked about, there's slippery, sand, mud, trailer, eco, so there's a ton of modes, but this Expedition also allows you to lock the rear differential. So if you're stuck somewhere, you could definitely enable that. That is great. And of course, you have 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive. You can manually select it, right? So you got that as well. Other features that you get, well, you get a wireless phone charger. Of course, the power tailgate is powered. And also, the third row seats are powered as well. So if you look in the back, once you open the tailgate, you get a good amount of cargo room, even with the third row seats up. Now, if you wanted even more, you can get the Expedition Max, which add on even more space behind, but this one isn't bad. You get a little hidden storage underneath, but if you look at the left side, you do see that you have controls to fold down your third seats. The controls do fold down and they bring them back up. Also controls to fold down your second row seats, but it doesn't automatically come back up. You have to manually fold it up. But you can see with all the seats folded down, you get enormous amount of cargo room, right? Fantastic. And I already mentioned that this Expedition can be configured as 7 or 8 passengers, right? Either way, you'll get plenty of room. This one comes with 7 seats. So we have captain chairs in the second row, and there's plenty of room in between. So even for adults, if you wanted to go into the third row, no problems whatsoever. But you can still fold the seat up if you wanted to. So either way. And me being 5'10", I could sit in the third row with the second row seats all the way back, and I still have like 2 inches of leg room. Shows you how much room is back there. I still have 2 to 3 inches of headroom. Each side gets a USB port and plenty of cup holders. It's actually quite comfortable. The seats are very high off the ground too. Now moving to second row, even more space. I have almost like a foot of leg room in the second row, right? So it doesn't matter how tall you are, basically you're gonna fit. And still like 3 to 4 inches of headroom in the second row. It's very, very big and spacious. And second row passengers do get climate controls, also heated seats inside this Limited. I'm surprised to see no sunshades though. I thought this would come with sunshades, but it doesn't. But yeah, it's just, as for family hauling, this Expedition will meet your needs. Unless you wanted a bigger one, then go with the Max, but for most, this is plenty big already. Now, other things I haven't touched upon with the drive, well, I think throttle overall feels really good. Same thing with brakes. It's hard to describe, but with a lot of the new cars, right, with electronic throttle and electronic brakes, sometimes they just feel weird, right? Like it's not linear. It doesn't feel like how the cars previously felt. With this Expedition, still feels normal. The brake pedal is nice, not too mushy, not too stiff. The accelerator, the throttle also feels good. No surprises there. Also, I'm in love with this new steering wheel. This new steering wheel is big. It's still like a truckish steering wheel, but I like the thickness. I like the leather. It just feels good in your hands. And overall, the buttons are nice and big. You can understand it. It's not, nothing's hidden or tucked away, so that's pretty good. I like the steering wheel. But what I'm more impressed with is the steering feel. The steering feel has been improved substantially. I think the Expedition now drives way better. Doesn't feel like a truck that's kind of floating around, especially with a very loose steering. That's not the case. This is not loose steering. It's actually quite tight. It's not heavy, but it's more precise. So it just makes the drive feel better. So I like the steering, the new steering, quite a lot. Now, as for pricing, Ford does have 7 different trim levels for the brand new Expedition, and also this new Stealth Performance add-on if you wanted to add that on. The base model, the XL Expedition, starts right around $55,000. Then you have the XLT, the Limited, which is the one I'm driving today. Then you have the Timberland, King Ranch, and finally the Platinum, which is the range topping. Now the Platinum starts around $80,000. So there is a big gap between XL at 55 and the Platinum at 80. But don't let that fool you though, because a lot of the options that you'll find in the Expeditions, well, they're costly. So this Limited, even though it starts around $68,000, adding this panoramic sunroof along with the Stealth Performance package, along with a few other little things, this one that I'm driving as configured is already $83,000. So there's no doubt in my mind that if you picked one of these upper trim levels and added a few options, you could be pretty close to 6 figures. So the Ford Expedition is definitely not a cheap SUV. But then again, you're getting a whole lot. This is a gigantic SUV from Ford. So to conclude, I'm impressed with this new Expedition. I have driven the previous one, the previous generation. I've driven a lot of Ford trucks. I've driven a lot of SUVs. And I say this is pretty good overall. I think the outside with the little refresh does look more modern. It has been modernized. The inside with the new dash, with the new screen, I mean, the seats, I like the new interior. I think it's well designed and it feels a lot better. The quality went up. The overall drive of this Expedition has gotten better. I think I'm a big fan of this new engine, but you know, everything else I've talked about, this is a good SUV. The only downside, the only nitpick I would give is the fact that this Expedition is not cheap. It's not cheap at all, and I've already talked about pricing, and this one, as configured, is $83,000. So, there you go. You have to decide whether or not you really need all this much SUV. Is it worth it to you? Well, only you can decide. All right, guys, smash it a like, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you tune in to my future review videos. Take care. Bye-bye.